And welcome back. It's time for Opinion Court. Thank you for staying with us. Please do get in touch with us. 22422 is our SMS line, and you can reach out online at Citizen TV Kenya or at Citizen TV News or Facebook. We go by those names. Please use the hashtag Opinion Court. It allows us to track your conversation. And I'm at Ann Kiguta. That's Ann with an E. Let me introduce my panel to you once again. To my immediate right, Dr. Kilemi Muria is the President's advisor on matters education. In the middle is Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst. Next to him is Janet Ouko, the national coordinator of the Elimu Yetu Coalition. And across from me is Kibra MP Ken Okoth. He's also a member of Parliament's Education Committee and has the best performing CDF in the country. Go Kibra, right? Okay, good. Congratulations to you guys. We're discussing, of course, the dismal performance of candidates in the just concluded 2015 KCSE examinations. I'll begin with you, Dr. Ari, because out of the massive cheating that resulted in the cancellations that we saw today, how concerned is government about this? Is this a crisis?
Yes, well, thank you, Anne, for inviting me. And let me begin by, even as much as we are crying about very poor performance, I'd like to congratulate those who did very well. And some of them did really well under very difficult circumstances. Secondly, I also like to tell those who didn't do as well that this is not the end of the world, that getting an A grade in exams is not the beginning of everything. We know a lot of the people that are most successful in this country and contribute have not even had the luck to have secondary education. So there's a lot of hope. But talking about cheating, I think it's a problem. It was a problem last year and the years before. And I think the minister made it very clear today that we are concerned. I'm very impressed that he had the courage to apologize to Kenyans and to because sometimes we don't accept that the buck stops with us. So we need to, ask questions about not just how to stop it, but putting those mechanisms in place, but to ask questions about ourselves as Kenyans. I think I keep on saying this is a reflection of our society. We glorify thieves. Young people say they will do anything to make it. Everybody steals from the other one. The pastors are stealing from their flock. The policemen are stealing from, everybody else. So all of us, it's like that culture, and that's what these young people are seeing. And everybody seems to believe that somehow you have to cheat to succeed. So we need to, first of all, begin to work on that software of Kenyans, because it doesn't come from nowhere. And if we can deal with that, then we can talk about the more mechanical things. But I just say that I'm very worried that if we adults have led by example. Their own teachers are helping them, steal exams. Parents will buy exam papers. So it's a total mess. And I think unless we re-examine ourselves as a country, as a people, we are to blame. And I would say we have all seen the run short of the glory of the Lord.
Absolutely. I mean, you're worried, but you're not saying it's a crisis yet.
It is a crisis.
It is a crisis for government. Can you agree?
I think it's a crisis, and the first thing that I would say is while it's great that the minister apologized, he wasn't the minister when these mistakes and mismanagement of the Kenya National Examinations Council happened. It has been happening for a long time, and I think when the leakages started coming out and the Kenya National Examination Council would not take responsibility or give confidence that they're going to take steps to acknowledge, the first denied. So you cheat the children, you cheat the parents, and you give them an exam that has lost credibility. So my thing is to say that now either the Kenya National Examination leadership needs to resign and someone needs to take a clean look at how it is run and what are the purposes of this exam. But definitely I have zero confidence, and I'm pretty sure many Kenyans stand with me to say you're punishing innocent boys and girls who are 16, 17, 18 years old, yet the adults who are greedy, who are selling the exams, officials in the Kenya National Examination Council, are not being held accountable.
Although
that is a very high.
No, they were made. I don't think we've seen convictions yet, but there were some arrests made. But I hear your point that not enough is being done to punish
I say all the way from the CEO and the board, clean up the whole thing.
Needs to go.
Yes, zero confidence in Kenya National Examination Council. It's a cheat and a waste. We're spending a lot of money for children in public primary schools and public secondary schools to take take exams by a body that has zero credibility. I think it's time to clean it up and bring in new management and professional, and get even an outside auditor who looks at their processes, a company like PricewaterhouseCoopers, to make sure there is integrity and we have international standard exams.
And yet we didn't see the Education Committee of Parliament really assert itself over that matter when the crisis happened. Then why were you mum?
Actually, we asserted ourselves very clearly. This is not the first time I've called for the Kenya National Examination Council to go. At committee, we asked them when the first reports came. When they denied it, we called them in again, we asked them. And I think, you know, if nothing's going to be done, it might be a point where we check a vote of confidence and ask for their expulsion. There is a procedure through Parliament in which you can expel them, but we've not been silent on it. And I can tell you, nobody has confidence in the Kenya National Examination Council. I know I don't. The parents of Kibra don't. We need to look at putting in a credible Kenya National Examination Council where there is no cheating to the level that there is, and where a little child who's caught in an exam, you know, at 16 or 17 years old, pays a higher consequence than the CEO who sits pretty and earns a very high salary for being incompetent.
Janet, do you agree?
Wow, and of course it's custom, you know, when such a thing happens, you know, Kenyans are easy to tell people to vacate office. But I think I would look at it from a very different perspective, because this is not the only year that NEC has conducted exams. Indeed, it has in the past, and let's agree that probably we have not witnessed this level of cheating before. And I would want to say it's because of technology, because there were complaints there before, you know, and that's why Parliament, you know, asserted itself on and informed the Kenya National Examinations Council Act, because there had been cheating before. So, but it wasn't this pronounced, because technology came in and you know, but there before it is only big schools that had access to some of this, you know, cheating, because they had copies used to travel, you know, slowly, and so not everybody else had the papers. Right. And I think what we are saying here is systemic challenges probably. And when this was happening, I had an opportunity of talking to a few people at the Kenya National Examinations Council, and clearly so many things have changed, including the model of funding. And probably we are asking ourselves, could there have been something that really went so wrong? Because remember, even the backdrop against all this is happening, we had a 5 weeks long strike, and everybody was anxious, including the learners. Totally, they were ill prepared to face this kind of examination. And so for me, I think it's a bit,
so they had no choice but to cheat.
It's a little bit more overwhelming to just tell the Kenya National Examinations Council that this is your mess and you need to vacate, because so many of us, including parents that facilitated the transfers, it's a responsibility of so many other people. And for me, I feel that this is not the point where we should be you know, discouraging the council members and telling them, you know, everything else, but in terms of looking at ourselves, what did we do right, what did we fail to do? And even in terms of funding from the government, do we really believe that the funding was sufficient? Why, for example, didn't we see measures like an alternative paper being reintroduced? I think we should first of all understand those dynamics, and then come up with measures that will be sustainable and help.
Prof, what weaknesses did the 2015, you know, cheating scandal around exams expose, and is, you know, cancelling results deterrent enough?
Well, some action had to be taken, but if you look at what has happened with the Kenya National Examination Council, every other year at least a few people miss their results. I sympathize with the kids who didn't get results today, because probably that punishment is too harsh for them, because they're kids and probably they are not the ones responsible for that. If you see a kid, a young kid, seeing something dropped on the road, they will pick them. So it's quite like children to do that. So the cancelling of the results is not even the main focus, though I sympathize with the kids. I must also congratulate those who got the results. I'm sure there are those who deserved some of those results, but there could be others maybe who cheated through the system. Now, on this cancellation, and I think I will support what Janet is saying. The point is, this cheating alone will not be, even the cancellation is not going to be a deterrent. How many times have we said some few policemen have been taken home, you know, because they corruptly received money? Then you hear that they are still collecting money from the roads. You know, the president himself announced in Mombasa that he was watching some policemen picking bribes. Did you ask the Inspector General to go?
You know, we have had corruption in Parliament, and parliamentarians have been accused of all sorts of things, including where Ken Okoth works. And then
what would be the game changer?
Yes, the game changer is that the executive, the national leadership must take the initiative, so that, as he put it, we get a new software for our cultural behavior and so on. It's good. I think it was an act of sublime, a sublime act of responsible governance for the minister to say, yes, we are sorry. But we need to look at the National Examination Council in the context of other institutions. Which single institution in this country is working? None. And the responsibility goes to the president, his deputy, and the government in general, including the people in the opposition. Let us not be the first ones to condemn a small institution which is part of the whole, which we are also part of, and we are the ones who are corrupt. If the National Examination Council wants to peddle and give us papers which they think they are leaking, and there's nobody in the country to receive those papers, then they will have no customers. The whole thing is that there must be customers outside who want that to happen, and probably corruptly to tempt the ones inside. And so it's a job that the entire Kenyan community is involved in. So this institutional change, and I keep repeating on this, the leadership of this country has let us down. Somebody has told our president that you talk about these things. He talks about the heaven, the values of heaven, but he does not talk about the misery of those on earth. So the ones on earth have told him, please take action. He must act on this, and he takes leadership. But when he also needs support from the opposition to help him take action. So cancelling results was wrong. And I think also condemning the National Examination Council as the only one to take the baton is also equally wrong.
Fair enough. We must press forward to another dynamic in this, which has been now the overall poor performance, which the minister has blamed on absenteeism, among other things. How big a problem is this, Kilemi?
Well, first I'd like to quickly touch on what else we can do to improve,
very briefly.
Very briefly. I think there is an opportunity to use technology. Apart from ensuring there is more security, and a lot of the exams are, being stolen. The problem is actually at the places where they are stored. But we can use technology in this respect. Now that, and it is very good the government is introducing computers in all schools. There is nothing wrong to prevent an examination being administered from one center and releasing it to schools at the same time, just 5 minutes before the exam is done, because they can then get it and then print it out. That way, there is no time to play around with papers. Secondly, you can do exams like GRE and SATs that are done in the US and other countries, where it is possible to ask a similar question to different students, but asking for a different question but a similar solution, so that you are not able to copy from each other. So there are many ways of doing it, and I think we have not taken advantage of this. And this is the time, with the computers all over, with the internet, it's a good opportunity to begin to think about. Yes, it could be the game changer.
Right, to teach absenteeism and how that has affected performance. And if you're concerned, that your 1.52% are the ones attaining a C+ and above, that is about the same transition rate to universities. And the minister posed a question: is learning happening? What happens when we send our children to school?
Well, there are problems. Teacher absenteeism is a big problem. I think Janet and team have come up with reports indicating that at one single time, 60% of our teachers are not in the classroom. And this is a fact. I mean, so certainly teachers are to blame, and are part of those to blame. Secondly, the kids themselves. I think there is less discipline, there is less interest in reading. The parents themselves are not putting as much effort. The administration, so there are many factors that come into it, but teachers cannot escape from this.
They've got to be in class.
They've got to be in class.
Ken?
I think when you talk about teacher absenteeism, and you just have to look at the results from the northeastern province, those counties there, which for all of last year, after the Mandera attacks, the teachers did not go back to the classrooms. And the county governments took stopgap measures in local leadership and hired Form 4 qualified local young people to come and teach. The fact that the children in places like Garissa, Mandera, Wajir, for the first time in 8 years, got better grades in KCPE than they had got in the last 8 years, when they had teachers paid by TSC, apparently qualified, who were teaching them, tells you that maybe those teachers are not teaching. I've always said a child is better off with a low qualified teacher who is present to cover the syllabus than a highly qualified PhD who doesn't show up to teach them the lessons.
Right.
So better that teacher who's present is much better than a teacher who's not present. And number two, Kisiangani here is, I don't know what, he keeps blaming the children, he keeps blaming the opposition. The instruments of power and responsibility are with the president. I did not say the president needs to resign. I said the board of directors of Kenya National Examination Council need to change the CEO and his team and put in proper things that give us some. If they don't do that, even them, they need to go.
I don't want us to move backwards, but I appreciate your point. Janet, still on the question of whether learning is taking place, how can government make that measurable beyond just ensuring that teachers are actually present? How do you ensure that learners are actually comprehending? And as he's mentioned, if I may point out, there's this notion that's going around right now that we're sort of raising a quote-unquote Mayai generation, one that is not meaning competitive enough, isn't really engaged, doesn't want to really perform, and wants perhaps softer, quote-unquote, things are to be spoon-fed. Do you get the feeling that the quality of learners is perhaps not as great as the quality of teachers as well?
Well, I think, Anne, with all due respect to the teaching fraternity of this country, is that a lot has deteriorated. And I think as Kenyans, sometimes I feel like we have no moral authority to even question the people that we are saying are corrupt. If we don't care about the 268 billion shillings that we spend in the education sector, if we don't challenge the corrupt in our midst, if you don't challenge your brother because he's corrupt, but you want to be all over the place about an Anne Waiguru you don't know just because she's a high-profile person, I think that's a weakness that Kenyans we are having. We are not seeing the evil that is being perpetrated by ourselves. When teachers are not present, when teachers are not present in class, we need to know that we have paid taxes, and we need to know that that is wastage of money. And cumulatively, if you think about the amount of money that this government and taxpayers like us are spending on education, then you get to know that we have got no idea of what we are speaking about when we speak about corruption, because it's not better perpetrated by your brother, but it's really bad perpetrated by somebody else. We need to curb this wastage within the education sector, and it begins with that. It begins with losing those contact hours. And that's where you see that 1% of people are the only persons that can make it C+ and above. Fine, there are so many other challenges. For example, the curriculum, that is being looked into, but there are some things that we can do.
So how do you measure, how do you make it measurable that learning is actually taking place? What can government practically do besides having teachers?
There is this appraisal process that is going on with the Teacher Service Commission, but I'm daring the advice of the President because he's here. There are rumors that the process is being stopped because the people that have done a disservice to this nation are politicians. Because teachers will complain that this process is harassing us, and they will withdraw it very fast because they want to place a constituency just because 2017 is just around the corner. But so if anybody cares about this country, then we have to get our hands on what teachers are doing in class, and it is to support the appraisals that are going on now.
We have to, appraisals, continuous evaluation of what is happening so that we are able to judge students on a long-term basis as opposed to only in 1 week or 1 day in out of 8 years. So these are important factors. But I mean, talking about teachers, because we talk as if there are no others to blame. We spoke about students, we spoke about parents, but even the politicians. You will find in this country, where young people are performing very well, members of parliament are very much engaged in what is happening in their schools. There is a lot of interest. And in some parts of this country, and I quote Northeastern as an example, I keep on asking them, how can you explain the fact that you have to import teachers because you can't have enough students getting a C+ and above, to go to teacher training college? So it's because of that engagement. There needs to be that engagement to get the schools to do well. You have to be there constantly. And
Prof, if you would respond to the question of quality of learners, are students as competitive as they used to be, or as Kilemi has said previously? I mean, do we have perhaps not as competitive, as engaged, as willing learners?
You see, the kids are not to blame. You see, adults give kids the values that they are supposed to observe. If you tell your kid that they should wake up and do an assignment early enough, they will do that. That is part of the training. But the country in which we live has a lot of shortcuts. People like shortcuts. The quality of teachers, if I compare, because Mwalimu Kilemi has taught in the university for many years and he knows it. If you look at the caliber of teachers that were there in the 70s and even 80s, and you compare with what we have now, the current one has deteriorated to levels, and I have even seen them myself where they can even not, they have spelling problems and the basic things that can't go through. So really the quality, and that was blamed on us, it must change. And then what I would like quickly to add is the fact that teachers can still go to class and still not deliver the results. So it's not very good to talk about that. So the quality also reflects the kind of staff we have in the field to assess quality. Sometimes there are structural problems, and where people who leave the classroom and go to the Ministry of Education, and they are supposed to come and assess their seniors in terms of promotion. You see that the guys who have gone to the ministry now are called inspectors. They come to inspect the people they have left teaching in the classroom, and their juniors, including the heads. When they come back, they just remember all good days, and then in the process they are given some tea and they leave. So the supervision section must be revisited in terms of the status of the people who are going to assess quality, whether they qualify or not. But generally in the entire education system we need a change, because we are lucky to have the presidential advisor here. Please go and tell the president that things are not very good in high schools, and they are probably whoever is advising him doesn't say the truth, and tell him even if the universities are in a bigger mess. These kids that are joining the university, I think they are going to a difficult situation.
So how can you tell me to advise him and then say whoever is advising him is not telling the truth?
Now maybe somebody else he could have said
anybody but you, Kilemi. You're the honest one. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I'm going to take that, Prof, as your final comment, and I'm going to allow you, Janet and Ken, to also make similar recommendations in conclusion.
I think when you ask about the quality of learning that's going on in Kenya, we must ask, are the children learning the right types of things? For instance, if you want to be a mechanic in Kenya, when will you learn that? It's not in our school curriculum. If you want to be an artist, a dancer, when will you learn that? If you want to be a top soccer player. So the economy is evolving, but our curriculum is stuck in cramming things, and the textbooks of 16 years ago are still the same, while the world has changed very much in the last 16 years.
Maybe that's why
and if you think the next, and the key, so that's number one. But number two is there's discrimination in the system. We live in a Kenya that is two Kenyas. When you come to Kibra, the poor children who can't afford a public school and are going to a school in the slum that is run by some small business or by some NGO, the access to education they're getting there is not the real access to education that you get when people go to Alliance, which are government schools that have over-investment and all the facilities. So that discrimination must end, even as simple as where we started today on the exams. The Kenya National Examination Council, now we don't have exam fees for children in public schools. Let us reduce that exam fee or eliminate it completely for children in slums. Why should a child in Kibra slum, in a secondary school there, pay 4,500 for KCSE, yet a child in Alliance is getting it for free? Those are the types of things we need to do.
Proper education policies.
Yes, relevant curriculum for the 21st century, and a policy that does not discriminate and does not leave poor children behind. When you talk only 30% of the children pass the exam, a lot of that 67% left behind. The 60% or 70% are in the poor areas. So we are discriminating and creating a class-based society.
All right. Thank you.
I think it's sad when you're talking about 5,000 learners that have not been able to get their examinations, and I would want to believe that a good number of those learners probably did not even intend to cheat, but they were brought for scripts by other people, yet those people have not been punished. But we're now talking about 5,000 learners who are staring at their future. They worked so hard and so on and so forth. So I think for me the idea is about telling the cabinet secretary that there is really need for us to get total accountability for the 5,000. What does it look like, so that we get to the bottom of the matter? Because anybody that abetted even in cheating, really we cannot just sacrifice the learners and imagine that we can get away with it. And it's wrong for a society like ours to just look like because we've punished the children, then all of us are fine, and no adult is really,
if only there was
clearly
punished parents,
you know.
But there's not.
Yeah, so I think it's really wrong for us to just sacrifice the children and imagine that we have sanitized the situation. It's just not like that.
All right, your final thoughts.
My final comment is that I'm worried about the inequality in terms of performance. If you look at the top schools, most of them are national or private. Now 80% of the schools are out there in rural areas. I think we need to do something. Even as we talk about cheating, that is a very serious problem. We need to do something in terms of upgrading their skills, but also in terms of ensuring that they stay in school and are able to do the exams. Secondly, there is also an inequality in terms of who we are catching. When we looked, where the schools that are, mentioned, were listed as the ones where exam cheating has taken place, is it possible that there is no cheating in national schools? Is it really possible, or is it a typical problem we have in this country where the big fish are always able to slip through the net? So because we know even in national schools there is cheating, but apparently they are number ones, they get the best students, but we are not told that that is happening in those schools, so we tend to victimize the victims. So we've got to deal with that inequality. All
right, I thank you for your views. We're taking a short break and we're back with the business after this.